At the moment, allow me to introduce some of our guests for today. We have with us representatives from different embassies and organizations. And I would like to start with just mentioning all their names and then allowing them each a few minutes to say something. So with us today, we have the pleasure of having the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Kenya, Maarten Brouwer. We also have the Regional Director for Hivos East Africa, Mendy Njonjo. We have the Deputy High Commissioner, High Commission of Canada to Kenya, David Da Silva. And we have Deputy High Commissioner, High Commission of Australia to Kenya, Linda Gellard. Thank you for joining us today. And I would like to invite the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Kenya, Maarten Brouwer, to say a few words.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to join this webinar. I'm really honored and to associate myself also with the group. You're doing so much good work. And it is now the second year that we're not able to do any physical activities to mark the day. But still, to be here then in this way is the second best solution, but it is a solution and I'm happy to do so. And to be with you and the LGBTI leaders and allies, really helpful. I think you know that also during my the period of my predecessor and already for a very long time, the Netherlands is really a friend to the movement and to the cases of the IDAHOT. We think really that non-discrimination and equal rights for LGBTI persons is a key human right. And therefore, we have in nearly all countries that we work, we have contacts and contracts and activities with NGOs, activists, fellow governments around the world. We really want to make sure that this is seen as a key human rights priority. And we will continue also with the agenda at home, because not everything is perfect in the Netherlands, and there's still a lot of work, especially for the LGBTI community, to be done in the Netherlands. In Kenya, we're very happy to work with GALC in co-chairing the SOGI forum, bringing UN organizations and NGOs, activists, embassies, and whoever wants to express himself on the issue, to work with them, discuss relevant developments, and take careful note, and also bring that in the human rights discussions that we have also in international fora. But not only there, also in practice, in the bilateral context, what we can do, we will try to do. It is by working together, comparing notes and listening to each other that we can all play our part to ensure non-discrimination of LGBTI persons. And that really is a priority, as I said. Now, this year's theme of IDAHOT is Together, Resisting, Supporting and Healing. And we've been thinking very much about this healing, because what does it actually mean? We are very, very much aware of the fact that many people in the LGBTI community and also their leaders are often under stress, sometimes for long periods. And that makes that you sometimes have to relieve yourself from that stress. And mental health is therefore an important issue. And we think that that is an issue that we would like to put emphasis on in this year. So mental health, psychosocial support is an issue, not only for this community, broader, also for refugees, for instance, And in humanitarian work, we want to stress the issue of mental health and the fact that we have a strong feeling that that is underserved in many of the programs that address the issue of the LGBTI community. The magnitude of the challenges faced, individual pressure on leaders in your communities can really become too much for persons. So if we can address the mental health issues, and if we can make sure that they feel more comfortable and feel safer, not only the leaders, but everyone in the community, I think that will be great. And all kind of suggestions that you may bring up during this webinar, in the interchanging the dialogues with all participants during and even later this week and during this webinar, I think would provide an opportunity to learn from each other and to help relieving the needs. So this webinar is about this leading in crisis, and I can only thank you for doing that. So important that there is leadership in any crisis, but also this crisis, because the acceptance of the LGBTI community is still an issue that deserves all our attention. So I encourage you very much to continue the work and highlight that also in the Netherlands. I will personally also make sure that it is known what the community in Kenya is facing and how you're dealing with that. And you'll find an ally in us as an embassy and in me as a person. So I wish you all the best with this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for those encouraging words. Next, we have the Regional Director, Hivos East Africa, Mendi Njonjo. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So Your Excellencies, partners, allies, and friends in the afternoon, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to join you this afternoon to celebrate IDAHOT 2021. So as Jackson mentioned, my name is Mendi. I'm the Regional Director for Hivos in East Africa, and my pronouns are she, her. So Hivos is an international development organization that is guided by humanist values, and together with citizens and their organizations, we aim to contribute, excuse me, towards just, inclusive, and life-sustaining societies where people have equal access to opportunities, rights, and resources. And we do this in partnership with others in the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Latin America on our impact areas of civic rights, gender equality, diversity and inclusion, and climate justice. So this year's theme of resisting, supporting, healing is really reflected in the work that we do, where we champion equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of all people, regardless of gender, sex, sexual orientation, identity, expression, or sex characteristics, ethnicity, age, ability, religion, and culture. And we recognize that every person has multiple identity that factor and impact who they are, their participation and agency. So in particular, young women and LGBTQIQ+ people are at the center of and inspire Hivos' program and partnership. So our commitment to gender equality, diversity, and inclusion is seen in programs like the Free to Be Me program that we are kicking off with the generous support of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is seeking to really support the movement building and maintenance of diverse LGBTIQ+ organizations and activists who are advocating for their human and socioeconomic rights. Additionally, we also work on the We Lead program, which seeks to strengthen and influence the position of young women and adolescent girls especially LGBTQ women, whose sexual and reproductive health and rights are neglected the most. And then last but not least, we also work on the Voice program, which is attended at Oxfam Novib and Hivos, run on behalf of the Dutch Ministry of the Foreign Affairs. And Voice stands for a world where empowered right holders are able to express their views and demand their right to responsive and inclusive societies. Now, I was asked to reflect on what the pandemic has basically taught me about leadership, as well as also what the pandemic has also inspired some sort of change in the style of leadership during this rather fraught period. I think for me, what the pandemic has done is that it has really reaffirmed that what truly matters, what always mattered, was the well-being of staff and the community members on whose behalf we serve. It's also like underscored once again that a lot of the inequality that we seek to counter every day, all of us who are seated around the table, the pandemic just exposed the fault lines that really underscore just how inequality comes from one central place. And if there's anything that I hope that this pandemic has taught me about leadership, is that if we are to make any dent on some of like these really huge structural issues that we all seek to counter, it has to be by helping leaders, helping movements in terms of becoming more resilient people, more resilient organizations. And I feel this is something that as Hivos, we are called to do, and I think for people also sitting across the room. So with those relatively few remarks, I will hand over back to you, Jackson, and looking forward to IDAHOT 2021. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mandy. Up next, we have Deputy High Commissioner, High Commission of Canada to Kenya, David De Silva. David.
Good afternoon, everyone, and happy IDAHOT. Bonjour, hamjambo. I'm honored and proud to join representatives from like-minded countries, from civil society, friends and members of the LGBTI community to celebrate IDAHOT today. And I look forward to the panel and discussing leadership in a time of crisis. I think it's very apt, and as the Dutch ambassador mentioned, leadership means taking care of health, mental health, and the like. 3 quick points that I wanted to make today. The first is that I can't help but point out that IDAHOT, or how it was originally called, IDAHOT, was actually a Canadian invention. In 2003, Fondation Emergence, it's a Canadian NGO, conceived and organized the first ever National Day Against Homophobia. The idea became popular, and within a few years, this International Day was being observed in a number of countries, and in alignment with the idea of inclusion and diversity, we've changed the name over the years too, from IDAHOT to now IBAHOBIT, which I believe is an Australian contribution. Canada is really proud to have been a key contributor to the growth of this global movement and to recognize and support this very important community. We also take this opportunity to reaffirm a principle to which we are deeply committed, and that's that no one should be subjected to discrimination or violence because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or sexual characteristics. In the words of our Prime Minister, who proudly calls himself a feminist and regularly marches in every Pride march that he can possibly get himself into in Canada, everyone deserves to live free of stigma, persecution, and discrimination, no matter who they are or whom they love. The second point I wanted to make was about today's theme, together, resisting, supporting, and healing. The Dutch ambassador talked about mental health and the healing aspect of that. What I would like to bring to the conversation is being authentic. At the moment, I'm acting High Commissioner, so I will be High Commissioner for 5-6 months perhaps. And so leadership is something that has to come from inside. It's going to change with each person. It's going to change with the circumstances you react to and that you're faced with. In the COVID-19 pandemic, we know that the pandemic itself has had a disproportionate impact on LGBTI persons due to marginalization, due to discrimination, and other factors. Even in Canada, we still don't fully understand the reasons why, but members of the LGBTI community are not seeking healthcare as frequently as others, and they're not taking the vaccine as frequently as others. And these come to reasons of marginalization, discrimination, perhaps lack of faith in government or in the medical system. In light of this, we urge all governments and all those on the call today to think about the measures and policies that we can all do, including in promoting access to healthcare, information, housing, financial sector, economic support, and take into the account the needs of LGBTI persons in a proactive and a non-discriminatory way. The third thing that I wanted to say is thank you. Thank you to all the people that are on the call today. Thank you for your efforts, your courage, your passion, your energy. Leadership can be enormously energizing, but can also be enormously draining at the same time. You're giving a part of you to a cause that you deeply believe in. I am constantly impressed and amazed at the way that people on this call, and in general, LGBTI persons across the region, promote and protect rights, challenge laws, empower grassroots organizations to provide safe spaces, access to information and healthcare, and protect human rights defenders, and also speak up in the most basic forms, speaking up against discrimination, hate propaganda, and hate crimes. Although it might seem that the steps are small, they are important. Canada is very happy to support regional discussions and sharing of lessons on this, and understanding that each country is at a different stage in what we hope is a journey to greater respect for LGBTI rights. Our approach is the same approach that I would advocate on leadership. Find something that suits you. Find something that draws on your strengths, on your reserves, on your courage, on your passion, and make it really be a part of you. I believe, as far as I'm aware, I am the first acting, but High Commissioner for Canada who is openly queer at this mission. That is progress. Progress comes in small steps. And so I am impressed and amazed at the courage and energy that all of you bring to this discussion and to your everyday actions. And I urge you to take simple acts of love, whether that's picking up a phone or sending a text or scheduling a walk or a virtual chat, to offer support to each other. That community and supporting each other is very, very important when you're steering a ship. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have Deputy High Commissioner, High Commission of Australia to Kenya, Linda Jalad. I believe the microphone is on mute.
I think we're now all good, Jackson. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to thank my fellow panelists and everyone else who's joined us today. It's a real honour to be here to be representing Australia at this forum. Australia's really committed to human rights and respect and acceptance, and LGBTI plus communities are a really important part of that. So we are working at all levels of government to promote human rights and the rights of LGBTI communities. And it's a key part of Australia's engagement globally. But I guess I wanted to also recognise a bit something similar to what my colleague David De Silva has mentioned, that in Australia we also recognise that we have a long way to go. A few years ago in 2017, we had a vote for marriage equality, and it was a really special time in Australia. It was a wonderful day. I took my children out with me to post our vote. It was a postal ballot, and people kind of really celebrated with their families in their own way about how they were going to vote and how we could feed into this experience. But I guess all of that just to say that that was 2017 in Australia, and it's extraordinary to me that that is just so recent that we now have marriage equality. It's a really wonderful thing, but I did want to recognise that in Australia we also recognise that we have a really long way to go. In terms of the themes today, in terms of resisting and healing and supporting, I wanted to, I guess, talk about my contribution today, which is what all of the allies can do to support our friends, to support our colleagues, and to support our family members who identify as LGBTQ plus as part of that community, and to see if there's ways that I can do better. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all. And as my colleagues and my panelists have mentioned, thank you all for all of your hard work, which I find really inspirational, and being as you go on the front line every day to try and make the world a better place for all of us, and as we all try and lift each other up together. So thank you so much, Jackson, and to everyone else. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Two things I'd just like to that I took note of from the speeches from their excellencies and from the regional director for Hivos is that there remains support from across the globe for our communities and our movements, and the problems that we face in East Africa, and perhaps we'll hear from Indonesia as well, are also problems that are kind of still being faced in the Netherlands, in Canada, in Australia. And so the need for togetherness, the need for resistance is still global, and the fight continues. Before we move on to the next bit of today's program, I'd like to take a step back and just, we now have Levis, who's able to come in and say something on behalf of our hosts for today. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jackson. Thank you so much, the High Commissioners, Hivos. Technology is very interesting. You know, everything works really well when you're practicing it until the day of. And then it reminded me of a story in the Bible about a gentleman called Moses. So he was leading the children of Israel to Canaan, but he never reached there himself. And I almost felt the same way, you know, bringing people and not being able to really partake of this. But I'm so grateful I'm back. And first and foremost, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the Canadian High Commission, the Australian Embassy, the Dutch Embassy, Hivos and Voice for bringing us together today. It gives me a lot of joy as the co-founder of Sullivan Reed to be able to really see how collaboration and allies are coming together to really tackle LGBTI inclusion within our own countries, within our spaces, our homes, our churches, and different areas where we find ourselves in. As I was just reflecting about leadership in crisis, I thought about when the pandemic started and how different leaders in the world approached it. And studies have shown that the women leaders did a better job than the men in terms of handling the pandemic. It's a fact, there are studies shown on that. And I was also wondering, did the LGBTI, leaders also you know, take up the mantle and lead with empathy and vulnerability and humanity in the process of this work. As I thought about myself as an LGBTIQ leader in this space, I thought about my personal struggles with the pandemic, from mental health to loneliness, to adding weight, you know. It's good that you can only see just this upper part, you know. You know, all those struggles really of the pandemic. And so there are those personal struggles. And then also there's the community struggles. And we were working at the time, I remember we were doing a program with Voice, working with university students, and stories of young people who are back home to homophobic parents, stories of parents who have refused to pay school fees for kids, stories of where, because it was just stories after stories of difficult times. But in the midst of all that, there's also stories of resilience, stories of overcoming, stories of togetherness. And I'm reminded also of allies, people who sometimes we forget. These are, you know, your cisgendered heterosexual people, right? Who are coming together and saying, I see you, I hear you, and I am here for you. And so my message really is to tell the LGBTI community that we are not alone. We have a whole army of allies who are seeing us and are supporting us and are standing with us. And as we continue with these conversations in the panel sessions, as we see what leaders have innovated, what they have done within the different spaces, how they've managed to overcome their own personal challenges and also rising up to the challenge and working with communities and adjusting to these digital platforms and other ways. I am thoroughly excited again to welcome you and to invite you in this conversation. And thank you so much for our partners and supporters and the panelists and the audience and the participants. I am thoroughly excited and I'm looking forward to fantastic conversations. I can talk the whole day, but this is not my time to shine. So I will let the panelists really, you know, have this. Jackson, back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that awesome. I knew we missed out when you couldn't join us earlier. So thank you for coming in and bringing that energy with you.